I never thought I'd remember that smile the way I do now. Quiet, patient, like he knew something I didn't. I wasn't supposed to be listening when she said it. I compared my husband to my ex. She laughed, low and tired. And he just smiled and walked away. The wrench slipped from my hand. The sound of metal hitting the concrete floor snapped her attention toward me. Sorry, I muttered, crouching to pick it up, but she was already watching, her eyes that strange shade of gray that can't decide between warmth and distance. She was standing near the counter of the auto shop, hair pulled back like she'd done it in a hurry, but somehow it still looked elegant. Her clothes didn't scream for attention, but everything about the way she carried herself did. The kind of calm that comes from knowing too much about people, maybe too little about herself. Her name was Elena. She came in once a week, always for small things. Tire pressure, oil check, windshield wipers. Things she could probably do herself. But she didn't. And I didn't ask why. The place was half-lit, early evening. The kind of hour where the sun had given up but the world hadn't noticed yet. The hum of the radio filled the silence between us. "So, your husband?" I asked, not out of curiosity, but because silence suddenly felt heavy. She looked at me for a second too long. "Ex-husband," she corrected softly, then smiled in that way people do when they're pretending something doesn't sting. "Old habit." I nodded, but she didn't look away. It was unnerving, the way she seemed to study me like she was waiting for me to say more, as if silence said too much already. I went back to wiping my hands, trying to ignore the tiny tremor in them. She placed her keys on the counter, fingers brushing against a coffee cup she must have brought in with her. The faint smell of cinnamon drifted over. She noticed me noticing. "You look like someone who hasn't had a real meal today," she said. "Been a long shift," I answered. "Still doesn't count," she replied. "You can't live on caffeine and grease." It wasn't what she said, it was how she said it. Not teasing, not motherly either. More like she saw straight through the excuses I hadn't even spoken yet. There was a pause. She looked around the shop like she was trying to remember why she came here. Then she smiled again, different this time. Softer. Resigned. "You remind me of someone," she said. That should have been nothing. People say that all the time. But something about the way she said someone made me feel like she was remembering a version of herself she didn't visit often. I didn't ask who. Instead, I reached for the rag near her hand. Our fingers brushed, briefly, just enough to feel the difference. Her skin cool, mine warm from the work. She didn't pull away. Neither did I. For a second, I forgot we were standing under flickering fluorescent lights and the smell of motor oil. The world shrank to the space between her breath and mine. Then her phone buzzed. She looked down, sighed, and stepped back. The air shifted, colder now, as if the moment had realized it wasn't supposed to exist. "Take care of yourself," she said quietly. Before I could say anything, she was gone. When I locked up that night, I found her coffee cup still sitting on the counter. The cinnamon scent had gone faint, but it lingered. I told myself I'd toss it in the morning, but I didn't. It's been 3 days, and it's still there, next to the register, right where she left it. And every time I look at it, I remember her saying it again. I compared my husband to my ex, like she was warning herself not to repeat the mistake. Only now, I can't tell if she was talking about him or me. The next time she came in, it was raining. Not the kind that announces itself with thunder, just a steady, quiet drizzle that makes the world feel slower, softer. She stood by the doorway, shaking the water from her umbrella before stepping inside. Her hair was a little damp at the ends, her coat darkened with rain. She looked like she belonged to that gray light outside, somehow part of it, not against it. "Your heater's still not working," I said, nodding toward her car through the open garage. She smiled faintly. "It's old. Like me." I almost said she didn't look it, but she would have seen through that, and I didn't want to sound like I was trying to win her. I just nodded, wiping my hands on the rag again, buying time. She waited near the workbench, arms folded, watching me fix the wiring. Every few minutes, I'd catch her reflection in the window, leaning slightly, her lips pressed together as if she was holding back words. "You seem quieter today," I said without looking up. "Do I?" "Yeah. You were different last time." There was a pause, long enough that I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, softly, Maybe I was pretending to be okay. Something in her tone, half confession, half surrender, made me stop what I was doing. She didn't move, just stared at the raindrops running down the glass. I don't really talk to anyone these days, she added. It's easier not to. She said it like she didn't expect me to reply. Maybe she preferred the quiet, someone who wouldn't ask why. But I couldn't help watching the small things. The way her thumb traced the edge of her coffee lid, the faint tremor in her voice when she tried to sound casual, how her eyes darted toward the door like she was timing herself, like she couldn't stay too long. You should, I said quietly. Should what? Talk to someone. She smiled, barely. You offering? Her tone was light, but her eyes weren't. They lingered on mine for a heartbeat longer than necessary. I didn't look away. When the car heater finally roared to life, she stepped closer to feel the warmth, her sleeve brushing my arm. Better, she murmured. The shop smelled faintly of wet asphalt and her perfume. Something floral, faint, expensive but tired, like it had been sitting on her dresser for years. She stood there, hands near the vent, eyes half closed, soaking in the heat. For a moment, she looked younger. Not by years, by weight. Like she'd set something heavy down just for that breath of warmth. Then she opened her eyes and caught me watching her. What? She asked softly. Nothing. But I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. She straightened her coat, smoothed her hair, and exhaled. A small, shaky sound that said more than she wanted it to. I should go, she said. I nodded. She hesitated, like there was something else she meant to say, then reached for the door instead. Keep the coffee cup, she said suddenly, glancing back. I'll get it next time. Her voice cracked just a little on next time. And then she was gone again, into the rain, into the kind of gray that swallows color whole. But that one tremor in her voice stayed with me, replaying in the quiet after she left. Because sometimes, it's not the things people say that stay with you. It's the things they almost said. The third time I saw her wasn't supposed to happen. It was after closing. Rain again, heavier this time. The kind that makes the roof echo and turns the streetlights into smudges. I'd stayed late finishing paperwork when her headlights cut through the fogged glass of the shop. I almost didn't open the door. But she looked stranded somehow. When I let her in, she exhaled with relief, brushing water from her hair. Sorry, she said, breathless. Car died. Again. I didn't know who else to call. There it was, that small admission, like a crack in her practiced calm. I told her it was fine, but my hands were already shaking as I took her keys. While I worked under the hood, she stood near the counter, arms crossed, watching. Every now and then, lightning flashed, whitening the walls for a second. She didn't flinch, but her jaw tightened every time the thunder followed. Not a fan of storms. I asked. Not a fan of silence, she said. Storms just make it louder. I didn't understand it then, but I felt it. That kind of loneliness, the one that hums under everything, even noise. When I finished, I wiped my hands and leaned against the car beside her. The lights flickered again, and for a moment we were both just quiet, listening to the rain hit the metal roof in uneven rhythm. She looked tired. Not physically. Something deeper, like she'd been holding her breath for years. Long day? I asked. She laughed under her breath. Long decade. I wanted to ask what she meant, but her phone buzzed. She froze, staring at the screen, thumb hovering over the call. The name Daniel flashed before she flipped it over. Your ex? I guessed before I could stop myself. She didn't answer, just gave a faint smile that didn't reach her eyes. He calls when he remembers I exist. Usually when he's had too much to drink. Something about that made my chest tighten. The way she said it so lightly, as if it didn't still hurt. You don't have to answer. I said quietly, I know. Her gaze softened. But sometimes, it's harder not to. We both knew she wasn't just talking about the call. The power flickered out for a heartbeat. Darkness swallowing everything except the pulse of rain against the windows. In that second, she reached out instinctively, her hand brushing my forearm. Just a touch. But it was enough to feel her tremble, to realize how close we'd drifted without meaning to. When the lights came back, she didn't pull away. Neither did I. Sorry, she whispered. I didn't, it's okay. But it wasn't. The air felt charged, like a word left unfinished between us. She stepped back first, eyes darting to the window as if searching for something to anchor herself. I should go, she said again, same as last time, but softer now, like she didn't believe it. I followed her to the door, holding it open as the rain misted inside. She turned, half smiling, half breaking. Thank you, she murmured, for not asking too many questions. Her hand brushed mine when she took the keys. Just a graze, unintentional, maybe, but I felt it all the way to my ribs. When she drove off into the dark, I stood there under the flickering light, the scent of rain and engine oil mixing in the air. I told myself it was nothing, that I was just helping, but my hand still tingled where she touched me, and that small, forbidden warmth refused to fade. She didn't come by for almost 2 weeks. The coffee cup stayed where she'd left it, half forgotten, half sacred. Every morning, I thought about tossing it, and every night, I didn't. It was ridiculous, I knew that. But so was the ache that showed up when her car didn't. Then one afternoon, she appeared again. Not with her car this time. Just her. The rain had stopped earlier, leaving everything washed out in silver. She stood at the door like she was unsure whether to knock or turn back. When she finally stepped inside, her voice was small. Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life? No greeting. No pretense. Just that. I froze, rag still in hand. Sometimes, I said. Mostly when I stopped to think. She smiled faintly. That's when it hits the hardest, doesn't it? We ended up sitting at the counter, a space too small for the distance between us. She looked different, hair undone, no makeup, tired in a way that felt honest. She was tracing the rim of the same coffee cup, her nails tapping it lightly in rhythm. Daniel's getting remarried, she said suddenly. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. Her eyes stayed on the cup. He called last week to tell me. Said he thought I should hear it from him. That's cruel. She shrugged. Maybe he thought it was kind. The silence that followed wasn't comfortable. It was heavy, like the air itself didn't want to carry our words anymore. You know, she said after a while, her voice quieter, I don't come here because of the car. I know. She looked up then, really looked. And I realized how long I'd been waiting for that. Then why do you think I come? She asked. Her tone wasn't challenging. It was searching. Scared, even. Like she wanted me to say something she couldn't. I swallowed. Maybe because it's easier to be seen by someone who doesn't expect anything from you. Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to answer, but nothing came out. That's not fair, she whispered. I didn't mean, no, you're right. She leaned back, laughing once under her breath, dry and small. You see me, and I don't know what to do with that. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound left between us. She looked down, hands trembling slightly. This, whatever this is, it's not supposed to happen. I know. But it is, she said, barely above a whisper. And I don't know how to stop it. Her voice cracked on the last word, and I felt something in me unravel. Every rational thought, every rule, every reason I'd built up over the past few weeks, it all went quiet. For a moment, neither of us moved. Just the sound of her breathing, uneven, close enough to feel. Then she looked up, and her eyes met mine. Wet, tired, and so painfully human. What are we doing? She asked. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because I knew the truth, and saying it out loud would make it real. She stood after a long silence, her chair scraping the floor softly. I should go, she said again, the same words as before, but this time they hurt. She turned toward the door, paused, and said without looking back, Please, don't wait for me next time. The door closed gently, almost kindly, and for the first time, the silence didn't just fill the room. It filled me. I thought she meant it when she said not to wait. But a week later, her car pulled up again, same spot, same gray evening light. Only this time, she didn't step out right away. She just sat there, engine running, staring at the steering wheel. When she finally came in, she looked like someone who hadn't slept much. Her eyes were red, her voice almost gone. I shouldn't be here, she said. Then why are you? She hesitated. Because I didn't know where else to go. She sat down on the stool by the counter, the same one she always chose. I poured her coffee without asking, though it was late and cold. She didn't drink it. I found something, she said quietly, fingers trembling as she reached into her bag. She pulled out a photo, creased, faded, edges torn. A man stood next to a young boy, maybe 12 or 13. Both smiling, both squinting in sunlight. "That's my son," she said. I blinked, surprised. "You never mentioned." "I don't." Her voice faltered. "He died 5 years ago. Car accident." Daniel was driving. The room tilted slightly, sound falling away. She kept her eyes on the picture, like she couldn't trust herself to meet mine. "He was 17, she whispered. "And I think I stopped being a person that day." I didn't know what to say. Every word that came to mind felt useless. I just stood there, wiping my hands over and over, as if I could fix the ache in her voice the same way I fixed engines. She finally looked up at me. "You remind me of him," she said. "Not exactly. Just something about the way you listen. The way you care without asking to." Her lips trembled, and for a moment, I didn't see the composed woman who carried herself like stone. I saw the mother, hollowed out by time and guilt. "I shouldn't have kept coming here," she said. "It wasn't fair to you." "Maybe not," I said quietly. "But it wasn't fair to you either." Her eyes softened. "You don't understand. Sometimes I come here just to remember what it feels like when someone looks at me without pity." The words hit harder than I expected. Not because they were meant to, but because I knew exactly what she meant. The rain had started again outside, soft against the windows. She turned the photo over and slid it across the counter toward me. "Keep it," she said. "I don't know why. Maybe because I trust you more than I should." I hesitated, then reached for it. Our fingers brushed again, small, electric, unintentional. When I looked down at the picture, I saw the boy's faint grin, the way his hand was resting on his father's shoulder. But behind that, I saw something else, her reflection, faint in the glossy paper, watching me like she was asking for forgiveness she'd never receive. I looked up, but she was already standing. "I'll come by next week," she said softly. "If I can." I wanted to tell her not to, or maybe that I needed her to, but the words tangled somewhere between my ribs and my throat. She gave me one last look, half a goodbye, half a thank you. And when the door shut behind her, I stared at the photograph again. For the first time, I realized she hadn't been looking for comfort. She'd been looking for proof she could still feel. And I wasn't sure anymore whether I'd helped her or made it worse. The next week, she didn't come. Or the one after that. The photo stayed tucked under the counter, wrapped in an old receipt, so I wouldn't keep staring at it. But I did anyway. Every night after closing, I'd take it out, study the edges of her son's smile, and wonder whether I was helping her heal or just reopening something she'd learned to live with. Then, one night, I heard her voice again. Still open. I looked up, and there she was, no coat, no umbrella, no reason to be there except me. She looked softer somehow, undone by something invisible. Her hair hung loose around her face, her eyes swollen from crying or not sleeping. I couldn't tell which. "I drove past twice," she said quietly. "Told myself to keep going. Didn't work. I didn't move closer. Neither did she. The space between us felt like a truth we'd both finally stopped denying." "You said you might come," I said. "I also said I shouldn't." Her voice cracked on the word shouldn't. I nodded toward the stool. "Sit." She hesitated, then did. For a while, we didn't speak. The clock on the wall ticked too loud, and the smell of rain drifted in through the open door. "I thought about what you said," she murmured finally. "About what?" "About being seen." Her eyes flicked toward mine, tired but unguarded. "It's terrifying, isn't it? When someone actually looks at you long enough to notice the cracks." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe that's the only way you know you're still real." She smiled faintly. "You sound older than you are. You sound like someone who's had to be." Her eyes softened at that. A tear threatened to spill, but she blinked it back. "You shouldn't care this much," she said. I tried not to. Her breath caught, quiet, fragile. And then she laughed, shaking her head. "We're ridiculous." "I know. And you're too young." "I know that too." She looked up, finally meeting my eyes. "Then what are we doing?" I thought about lying, about saying we were nothing, just two people who kept crossing paths at the wrong time. But the silence between us said otherwise. I reached across the counter, slow, careful. My fingers brushed hers. She didn't pull away this time. Her hand was cold. Mine, warm and shaking. "Nothing has to happen," I said. "We can just sit." She nodded. That would be enough. So we sat, hands barely touching, the sound of rain soft against the glass, everything unspoken humming between us like a fragile truce. No grand confession, no kiss, just a stillness that felt like understanding. After a long while, she whispered, "You remind me of what I used to believe in." I didn't ask what that was. I just turned my hand slightly so our fingers fit, the smallest shift in the world, and yet everything changed. She leaned forward then, resting her forehead against the back of my hand, eyes closed, breath trembling. For once, neither of us tried to fill the silence. It said enough. It's been 8 months since I last saw her. The coffee cup is still there, now chipped along the rim, the cinnamon scent long gone. I keep telling myself I'll throw it away, but every time I reach for it, I stop. Maybe I like the reminder. Maybe I just don't want to admit it's over. She didn't disappear. She just left in the way people do when they've finally made peace with what hurts. No words, no promise, just quiet. And yet, she changed the air I breathe. Some nights, I still replay it. The last time we sat together, her forehead resting on my hand, the silence heavy and alive. Nothing happened that night, not in the way stories usually end. But something shifted in both of us. She'd stopped needing to come here to feel seen, and I'd stopped mistaking someone else's ache for love. That doesn't mean I regret it. I don't. Because before her, I never understood what it meant to really listen, to be present without fixing, to sit inside someone else's sadness without trying to escape it. Elena taught me that love doesn't always look like staying. Sometimes it looks like being the quiet space someone can finally rest in before they find the strength to go. Last week, I got a letter. No return address, just my name in handwriting I recognized instantly. Inside, a single line. "You helped me remember the part of me that still wanted to live. Thank you." No signature, no explanation. But I didn't need one. I just sat there for a long time, tracing the curve of her handwriting with my thumb, feeling something that wasn't quite pain, wasn't quite peace. Something in between. I still run the same shop. Same hum of machines, same smell of oil and rain. But it's quieter now in a way that doesn't feel empty. I keep the photo of her son in a small frame near the register. Customers probably think he's family. Maybe in a way he is. Every once in a while, when the light hits right, I see her reflection in the glass, imagined, maybe, standing in the doorway, half smiling like she used to. And I smile back. Because I get it now. We weren't meant to fix each other. We were meant to find each other. Long enough to remember that we're still capable of care, of warmth, of feeling something real. Love doesn't always stay. But when it's true, it leaves a gentler version of you behind. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?